is an exciting angle to look at. Don't you agree? What's up guys, and welcome back to another sewing vlog, because that's what these are basically going to become moving forward. In this video I'm going to be making this really trendy kaftan kimono style that you can either wear as a kimono open or tie a belt around the waist and wear it as a dress. I actually saw this on, I think it's called Grassfields. It's like a website where you buy like Ankara African inspired pieces, and I'm going to be trying it today with Ankara fabric. My fabric is yet to arrive, but I would unbox it with you guys once it gets here. I'm going to walk you through the measurements, the sketching, the making, you know, the usual jazz. But thank you guys so much for the love on my channel recently. With the last bodysuit video, like that video performed so well, and I was like, what? K-Divas. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So if you guys enjoyed this video as well, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But yeah, let's get into this video. I'll show you guys the sketch, the measurement. I'll show you any patterns if I make any, unbox the fabric with you, and at the end show you the final result. Okay, let's do this. The design of this piece is really loose on the body, and it has a 3/4 sleeve that goes from the shoulder all the way to the hem. It also has a reveal collar that goes around the neckline, the front and the back hemline. I have my sketch here. From the way I've deduced this style, there are actually two ways you can make this. You can make this in such a way that you have a 3/4 sleeve that is super wide, so you can pass the belt into the garment and tie it inside the body at the back, so it looks like it's fitted on the front and it has that like parachute silhouette on the back of the garment. Or you could just tie the belt all the way around or wear it open. So there are three ways you'll be able to wear this dress or this kaftan or this abaya, whatever we decide to call it. Let me know in the comment section the correct name for this garment, because I'm honestly not sure, but I like multi-way garments. I like pieces I can wear multiple ways. So I have my measurements here. I always like to have that. And then I have a breakdown of the patterns. This is how I plan a design in my head. I do the illustration, I break down the pattern, and then I write down the measurements I think I will need. So you need to measure your shoulder to shoulder. You need to decide on how long you want it to be. I'm aiming for something 3/4-ish. That is like my sweet spot length, because I can wear both heels and flats with like midi cut pieces. You also need to decide on how long you want the sleeve to be. You just need to measure around your bust, your waist, your hip, and then get vertical distance from your shoulder to your bust to your waist to your hip, and also decide on how long you want your belt to be. If you want like a super long belt, so you can do like a bow detail, or if you want something just sweet and short, you can do that as well. So I've written out all my measurements here. I will share like a full measurement list in the video description down below, so that way you just know all the measurements that you need. But let's get into making the pattern. The first thing I'm going to be doing is to draw a long vertical line that is going to become my center front line. Once I have that line in place, I'm just going in to mark the full length of the piece, so the measurement from your shoulder all the way till the hem. And then along that vertical line, I'm going to be marking the vertical distance from my shoulder to my bust, the distance from my bust to my waist, and then the distance from my waist to my hip. These are going to act as reference points when you're drawing in the shape of the side seam and the sleeve. So I'm just going in here to square across those lines for the bust, the waist and the hip as well. And after doing that, I am going to go on to the shoulder to mark 4 inches sideways like so, and then I'm going to mark downwards about I would say about 7 inches at this point. I ended up making it 8 inches because I wanted it deeper. Then I'm marking an additional 1 inch and I'm going to be connecting it to that 1 inch point. Because this piece has a collar attached, you want to shift it away slightly from your shoulder point. Now the sleeve length was about 19 inches and I'm just marking that diagonally across like so, and I'm going to draw it in place like this. Now the width of the sleeve that I worked with was 9 inches. You want it to be wide up to the point that when you pass the belt through the sleeve opening, you're able to move your hands even with the belt in place. Now I'm just going in here to draw the sleeve opening point like so. And after doing that, I'm going to be planning in the side seam after drawing in the hemline. Now moving to the bottom, the hemline width is about 10.5 inches. The idea is to create a shape that tapers in as it goes towards the hem of the piece, whether you're wearing it as a dress or as an open cardigan robe situation. I'm just going in here to draw that side bottom point straight like so, and so I'm sure that is nice and loose. I'm just marking 1/4 of my hip measurement along my hip line, and then by hand I'm just going to draw in the side seam shape. You want that to be wider than the widest part of your body, so if you have a fuller bust, just double check that it is bigger and it is looser than that dimension. Now after drawing it by hand, I went ahead to refine those lines using my pattern master, and this is what the front plan of the piece is looking like. Now it's coming together nicely, but because I want to add even more volume on the side so it drapes beautifully on the body, I'm going to slash and spread that area that is under the sleeve opening. Now this is optional, but if you want more volume and more drama, I highly recommend doing this. Now I'm just drawing in the line like so, and then I went back to actually make my neckline deeper. It's optional, you don't really have to, but I made my neckline about 8 inches deeper from the shoulder point. So once I made that quick correction, I'm going to go ahead and cut my pattern out and then slash along that line that I drew diagonally. Now the more you spread that place, the fuller the drape will be under the sleeve opening. Now I've grabbed some fresh pattern paper and I've layered my front plan on top, and I'm going to tape down the top side of this piece like so. Just hold it down with some sellotape and then spread it by about 8 inches. I said that was like a good amount to add to the piece without having it look too full or too bulky on my body. So after spreading it to your desired point, just go ahead to connect the top and the bottom together so you have a full side seam. Now I'm just going in here to add a 1 centimeter seam allowance all around my pattern and then cut it out so I can use it to create my back piece. Now because I want the front hem to have a curve, I'm just going to go back into my pattern piece and just draw in a curved shape hemline like so. Don't forget to add your seam allowance before cutting out the extra bits. It's optional if you don't want this shape, but I wanted mine to have this curve going up the front, and I'm just going to cut it out like so, so I have it ready to work with. So now that we're done with our front pattern, we can proceed to work on the back of the piece. Now I have just taped on the front plan or pattern in place, and I've gotten some fresh pattern paper, and I'm going to just trace off that entire vertical line that we did earlier on. That becomes my center back line. And so I have a somewhat accurate neckline and shoulder point. I'm folding in the spread that we did earlier on, so that gives me the V neckline that we had originally for the front, because you're going to need that to draw in the back neckline. So once you folded that in, just mark the point that is the shoulder point, the center back point, and the back neckline is about 1.5 inches below the shoulder point. Then I'm just going to draw in the back neckline like so. It's usually shallower than the front in most cases, and then I'm just going to trace off the shoulder, the side seam, and the hemlines. I have decided rather than have it shaped in like I did earlier on like this, I mimicked the shape of the front, especially around this underarm, waist, hip area, because I want it to be loose on the back. So what I just did was from around this point to around here. So I just like shaped it out so it's the same shape as the front. This is what the rest of the body looks like. So that's the back, and then the front underneath. The front is the part that has that curve, center back, center front, and then these two do not match because when you shift the back to meet the shoulder of the front like this, then they match along the shoulder point. So after joining that seam, then you come here and align the side seams here and stitch them together. Slash and spread patterns are always like this. It's always like a fun Tetris game. I think it's always really a nice surprise, and you never really know what the piece will look like until you're actually done. So these are the patterns I ended up making for this piece. For the parts like the collar and the belt, I'm going to cut straight onto the fabric, but this is the front and the back of the kaftan kimono that I'm going to be working with for this project. Today is day 2. I am ready to cut and sew my, let's just call it a kaftan kimono because that's what it is literally. The fabric I'm going to be working with is this fabric here, which if you've been following me for the last 1 year, you probably have seen at this point. This is it's like a watercolor print. This is like a silk satin that has a print on one side and is plain on the other side. It has a beautiful combination of pink, blue, white, and it just looks so stunning and so gorgeous. And it has a nice like fall and drape. This is actually one of the fabrics I used for my collection from last summer where I made like versatile robes, and I have quite a bit left, so I'm going to be using that fabric today. The initial intention was to actually use Ankara, but after making the pattern, I realized that I wanted the piece to actually fall and flow freely. And I know Ankara is a cotton-based like fabric, whether it's Ankara polyester or Ankara, it has way more body, so I opted for this instead. Speaking of Ankara, I've actually restocked Ankara fabrics on the Kim Dave store because a lot of you have been sending me like emails and DMs. So yes, these are the new Ankara bundles. I'll try and leave a photo of some of the current pieces that are available, and you can go grab yourself some. They come in like 6-yard bundles, so that way you get quite a bit of fabric in one piece. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the front and the back. I'm going to cut a collar piece as well and a belt because I want to be able to wear this piece in 3 ways. Fingers crossed, all goes well. I went ahead to pin down my pattern onto my fabric, the pattern for the front and the back of this kaftan kimono. I also went in to cut the piece for the collar and the belt as well. Okay, so I have cut all the pieces I need for my kaftan kimono. I have my back and my front here. This is the wrong side of the fabric, that's why it's white. I also went ahead to cut these pieces. This one here is my collar piece. This is 5 inches wide, and the total length of this piece is around your back neckline, around your front neckline, and then down the center front edge, the front hemline and the back hemline. So it like wraps all the way around your piece. I'm going to share the dimensions here so you guys have a better idea of how to calculate that. As for this other piece here, this is essentially a belt. This is 4 inches wide, and you can make it as long as you want it to be. I would say twice of your waist measurement is a good place to start, but if you want like lots of material to make a bow, then you can make it even longer. But mine is about 60 inches long and 4 inches wide. So I'm going to crack on with sewing and just update you guys as I go along. Now it is time to sew all the pieces together. I have my back piece here, which I gave a quick press, and I'm just going to be matching the side of the back along the shoulder and the side seam to this piece for the front. I went ahead to add some pins, and I'm going to be joining the shoulder and side seams. So I did this for the left and for the right hand side. And then after stitching on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, which I added on my pattern, I went back in and did an overlocking stitch or a zigzag stitch if that's what you have, just to secure the seam allowance. You could also decide to use bias binding if you want. The next thing I did was I folded the sleeve opening twice, and I'm going to be sewing on somewhat of a 1/2 centimeter seam allowance, so that helps me to finish off the sleeve opening. Now this is one way to do it. You could use bias binding option as well if you don't want to go around doing it the way I'm doing it here, but I did this for the left sleeve opening and for the right sleeve opening. After doing that, I gave my piece a press and tried it on to see how it fit. Okay, so I quickly popped it on just to check that I like what the style is fitting and sitting on my body so far. Ooh, and look at that folding detail on the side. Like, that is so nice. And that is as a result of like the slash and spread that we did here. Like, the wider you spread that, the more this would actually like drape down. So this is what it looks like worn as a open front kimono cardigan. Just ignore my tights. That's not how I would style this, but I would probably wear this with like a white crop top underneath, some jeans or shorts, and oh, like, this is so nice. I'm happy I went with this fabric choice and color choice. I'm just going to go ahead and fix the collar around the neck, so that helps me finish the neckline. I'm going to fit the collar all the way around and then do the belt, so I can wear this piece with a belt or open if I wanted to. But this is so nice. This is so nice. If you wanted to have it as a closed abaya style, when you do your front, you literally just have to cut it as a V neckline and have it closed. So this is what it would look like if it was closed like this. But you could also have it open or closed. Oh, I'm really happy with this so far. Wow. Now moving on to the collar piece, which is a very long piece, by the way. I'm going to be sewing up the end, so I have one entire band to join to the neckline of the kaftan kimono. After sewing that piece along the top and the bottom edge, I went in to pin wrong sides together so it looks like this, because I want to do a French seam for this particular seam here. So I'm going to sew it like this first on either a 1 centimeter seam allowance or 1/2 centimeter seam allowance, sewing it all the way around. And after doing this, either trim down the seam allowance so you have a lot less to fold in and stitch, or leave it like that and sew in on a slightly wider seam allowance. So after trimming down my seam allowance, I went back in to sew the seam again so I don't have a raw edge on this side and I don't have to think about overlocking. Now the last thing you need to work on is the belt. Now I had a really long belt and I decided to join two super long strips together like so, and after joining them like this, I put right sides together and stitched them up to create a tunnel, which after sewing I turned inside out. After turning it inside out, I folded in the edges to close it off to finish off the belt for this piece. This is the piece all done. It turned out really elegant, very refined, very chic, very I have £1 million in my bank account and I have no worries in the world. Look now. As in, the way the fabric is even catching the light, it's like I've arrived. That's what this piece is saying. I've arrived. Like, what do you want to tell me? You can't talk to me anyhow in this piece. So, like, no, you can't. Like, you just can't. I really love the outcome. It's something that I know I'll most likely wear with like a top underneath paired with like leggings or jeans in the even now and in the summer when it gets really warm. It's a nice flowy outerwear option. You can also wear it as a dress, which is how I styled it here. I literally just like wrapped it like this so it covers up my girls, covers up my body, And because it's quite loose on the body, you have a bit of material to wrap around. You could even add a safety pin so you don't have any like wardrobe malfunction. But this is what it turned out. What do you guys think? Are we loving this? Is this a yay or a nay? It's a yay for me. I don't know about you, but I am very, very, very pleased with the outcome. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you'll be recreating this, don't forget to tag me on Instagram at KimDaveDesigns. And until my next video, have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are. Bye.